So, in the past few years, we've seen an anime get an anime about making anime in Shirobako, manga got a manga about making manga in Bakuman, and there's even a light novel about making light novels. Seems like teaching an audience about a media form they love through that media form works pretty well. Anyways, today I'll be talking about the last of those three, the light novel. It offers interesting insight into the LN industry, but there's some other stuff too, like harem romance, dead parents, and incest. Yay! Just what I always wanted. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present Eromanga Sensei. Eromanga Sensei is a slightly misleading title in one sense, since it's about a light novel author and not a mangaka, but all too revealing in another with its significant amounts of fan service. In it, we follow a pair of siblings, Masamune, a moderately successful light novel author, who, of course, is in high school, and his 12-year-old sister Sagiri, a complete shut-in who doesn't even talk to Masamune. Through a certain sequence of events, Masamune comes to realize that Sagiri is the artist who does all the drawings for his light novels, Eromanga Sensei, and amazingly, the siblings start talking to each other. Then we get introduced to a number of other light novel authors and artists, most of whom happen to be female, and suddenly Masamune has a harem. From there on out, we get an ecchi harem comedy, with Sagiri gradually coming out of her shell, Masamune dealing with various nutball suitors, and somehow some light novel writing as well. Masamune is an easy character to describe. Take any harem protagonist you've ever seen, and he's the same as all the rest. Well, except for possibly his whole siscon thing, which doesn't necessarily differentiate him in a positive light. I can't say I'm a particular fan of his sister either. Sagiri is an overly cute, incredibly shy tsundere, who is obviously created as lolicon bait. I quite like the rest of the cast though. We have Elf Yamada, a more successful light novel author who's an odd cross between the rich girl trope and a complete chunibyo. Muramasa Senju, a crazy fangirl of Masamune's, who's also a successful light novel author in her own right. Tomoe, a bookstore owner and friend of Masamune's with a sharp wit, and quite a few more. Unfortunately, the author makes it clear right from the get-go that Masamune x Sagiri is the canon pairing, which kind of begs the question, why bother making it a harem? I mean, the incest thing isn't that surprising since this is written by the same author who wrote Oreimo, and at least this time they're not blood related. But if you're going to make it so clear that Masamune only has eyes for his Imoto-chan, then why even bother having other love interests? It only becomes more frustrating that the other love interests all seem like much better matches for Masamune, and in the case of Elf and Muramasa, actually confess. Then we have Sagiri, who clearly likes her Oni-san, but won't bloody say it. It makes the whole romantic aspect of the story just feel like it's filled with futility. Well, as I've begun bashing this series, I may as well continue. The fanservice in this series is overdone and tasteless. Usually I don't have too much of a problem with fanservice in light novels, since it's generally not quite as explicit as the pandering in anime. But this series is an exception. There is far too much text devoted to little girls' panties. I mean, maybe I'd have less of a problem with it if most of the heroines were a decent age, but they're all like between 12 and 15, which just makes those sections creepy. I'd also like to comment that this series steals far too much from Oreimo. Older brother hasn't talked to little sister in years. A discovery is made revealing that little sister is an otaku and a bit of a pervert. A romance blossoms between the two. And a bunch of other girls come along to make you wish that older brother would choose someone else other than his freaking little sister. That part of the story is exactly the same for both of them. I know it's the same author, but he could try to diverge just a bit more from his previous story. Now, notwithstanding the complaints I just made, there are some parts of this story that I do quite like. Foremost among them is the look it gives us into the world of light novel authors. With so many characters being light novel authors, we get to see how they deal with their fans, what the relationship between editors and publishers is like, the process for going from web novel to light novel, for getting manga or anime adaptations, and so on and so forth. As a fan of light novels, getting to see that perspective is pretty cool. The series doesn't necessarily go into quite as much detail as something like, say, Bakuman does, but then again its pacing is better, and as a result it does manage to keep up an interesting story. Also, as much as I basked the characters earlier, I do quite like some of them, namely Elf and Muramasa, and rooting for them, however hopelessly, kept me invested in the story. So, if you've read and liked Orimo, then I recommend this series. If you're a lolicon, I also recommend this series. As for everyone else, it depends on how interested you are in the light novel industry and how bored you are of harem stories. I can't give it a glowing recommendation myself, but I did enjoy reading it. As for alternate reading recommendations, if you happen to be looking for a light novel series with a sister that really loves her Oni-san, then you could always try Mahoka Koko no Rotose. If you want another meta story about an author, Bakuman would be a pretty decent pick. Anyways, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the review. Cheers!